What you are about to hear may profoundly change the way you understand spirituality, and perhaps even the very nature of reality. For centuries, humanity has been guided by a carefully crafted narrative, a story told and retold, edited, filtered, until its essence became almost unrecognizable. We were taught to believe that the divine lives outside of us, in distant temples, in unreachable figures and promises that demand blind faith. But what if the truth is closer than we imagine? What if the power we seek in the heavens has always been asleep within us? There exists a text, a forgotten gospel, banned from the official Bible many centuries ago. A manuscript that dares to claim the sacred needs no intermediaries, no walls, no dogmas. It is called the Gospel of Thomas. Among its verses are words attributed to Jesus, but in a way most have never heard. Words that speak of awakening, not obedience, of freedom, not guilt, of awareness, not fear. Perhaps that is why it was considered too dangerous. Because if every human being discovered that they are a living part of the same power that creates the stars, the entire system of belief and spiritual control would lose its strength. Now, imagine a vast desert. The wind carries golden grains across ancient dunes. The sun burns over stones that seem to hold memories of other worlds. And among silent mountains stands a stone refuge, the monastery of St. Catherine, in the heart of Sinai, Egypt. For more than 15 centuries, monks there have lived in silence, guarding manuscripts that survived time and wars. And it was among these scrolls, covered in dust and mystery, that scholars rediscovered something extraordinary: the Gospel of Thomas. Unlike the canonical texts, this gospel is not bound to external miracles, punishments, or divine rewards. It speaks of inner light, of a power that pulses deep within every human being, invisible, yet real, and perhaps that is why it was hidden. Because if each person realized they carry within themselves the same breath that animates the universe, the walls of fear and separation would collapse. Among its passages are phrases that sound like codes, simple yet full of layers. One of them in a free translation says, "When you reveal what is hidden within you, it will set you free. But if you do not, what remains hidden will dominate you." These words sound like a mirror for the soul. What we hide from ourselves silently shapes our reality, and what we bring to light, what we recognize, heal, and understand, transforms into strength, clarity, and freedom. It is as if true hell were the unconsciousness of who we are, and paradise, the moment we awaken to our own light. Another enigmatic passage speaks about the union of opposites. In paraphrase it says, "When what is dual becomes one, then even the mountains will respond to your will." For centuries, this phrase was seen as mere metaphor, but perhaps it hides something deeper, a symbolic language about inner integration. The union between mind and heart, between thinking and feeling, between wanting and believing. When these poles align, something happens, not outside of us but within, a state in which everything seems to fit together, as if the universe were breathing along with us. The ancients called this true faith, not blind belief, but a vibration of certainty. A confident silence in which the impossible no longer seems distant. And in that instant of harmony, it is not that the mountains move. It is we who learn to see the path open before them. For centuries, science and spirituality have walked in opposite directions, as if they spoke different languages. While one sought proof, the other sought faith. But gradually these two paths began to meet, like rivers that, coming from different mountains, eventually flow into the same ocean. What the ancients called spirit, modern science is beginning to call energy, frequency, consciousness. Perhaps in the end, they speak of the same thing, only with different words. The Gospel of Thomas, written nearly 2,000 years ago, describes something we are only now beginning to understand: that the outer world is a reflection of the inner one, and that matter responds to the consciousness that observes it, not as magic but as resonance. In paraphrase, the text suggests, what you manifest within yourself will become visible outside, and what you neglect within will end up shaping the world around you. This idea, once considered mystical, now finds echoes in modern experiments showing how observation alters the behavior of particles. Perhaps it is not that the mind creates matter, but that both dance in harmony, exchanging information on a level we barely comprehend. Physics calls it the quantum field, the ancients called it the living spirit, and both describe the same mystery. Everything is connected. Throughout history, ancient traditions have taught the same principle under different names. Tibetan monks said the universe responds to the state of the heart. The Sufi spoke of prayer as a song of harmony between the human and the divine. The Egyptians believed that sound and feeling shaped the invisible world. And among the Essenes, the community where many scholars believe Jesus himself lived for a time, it was taught that creation is not born from desire, but from the vibration of certainty. While modern man asks, ancient man felt. He did not say, "I want rain." He felt the freshness of the drops on his face, the scent of wet earth, the distant sound of thunder, and in some mysterious way, nature responded, perhaps not as obedience, but as recognition. The universe returning the echo of what was already true within the heart. Today, experiments show that the electromagnetic field generated by the heart is thousands of times stronger than that of the brain. But one does not need to be a scientist to perceive this. Just recall a strong emotion and feel how the whole body reacts. Joy warms, fear paralyzes, love expands. Inner vibration is not a metaphor. It is the silent language with which we speak to the world. And it is at this point that the Gospel of Thomas becomes almost prophetic. When it says that the kingdom is inside of us and outside of us, perhaps it meant that the boundary between inner and outer is illusory. Everything is field, everything is consciousness, and when mind and heart align, when thinking and feeling walk together, a silent power is born, the power to create in harmony with the whole. That is why the ancient traditions did not ask. They gave thanks. They did not plead. They vibrated. They did not wait for the miracle to come. They became part of it. And perhaps that is the greatest teaching hidden in the desert. There is no separation between the human and the divine. There are only different degrees of remembrance. When we live consciously, coincidences cease to be chance and become signs. When we breathe with presence, time slows down, and even the simple seems sacred. And when we cultivate a feeling of gratitude, life responds with a delicacy that cannot be measured in numbers, only felt. The universe is a mirror. It reflects back, amplified, everything we emit in silence. And perhaps that is why the Gospel of Thomas remained hidden for so long. Because its message is simple, yet dangerous for those who live by fear. It says we do not need mediators or formulas or promises. We only need to learn to listen to what vibrates within our own hearts. For a long time, we were taught to believe that we are small before the universe, like dust lost in an indifferent cosmos. But what the Gospel of Thomas and so many other ancient teachings reveal to us is something completely opposite. They remind us that the universe is not something outside of us. It is a living mirror of our own consciousness. We are made of the same substance as the stars, of the same vibration that gives form to worlds. The same breath that moves galaxies also breathes within every cell of our bodies. The Gospel does not speak about seeking the divine, but about remembering it. Because what we call spiritual awakening is not learning, it is remembering. It is not about acquiring power, but about recognizing what has always been present, merely forgotten beneath layers of fear, belief and conditioning for centuries. Man sought God outside himself, in temples, mountains, churches, stars. But the true temple is silent, invisible, and pulses at the very center of the chest. The same place where we feel love, courage, and presence. That is where the sacred dwells. And perhaps that is why the text of Thomas was called dangerous. Because it invites the human being to free themselves from mediation and to discover the divine within. Think of all the times you believed you were not enough. When you doubted your own worth. When you waited for something outside yourself to come and save your life, those moments are not failures, they are callings. Calls to turn your gaze inward and remember that you were never separate from what you seek. The power that moves mountains is not literal. It is the strength of awakened consciousness, of the mind that stops fighting against the world and begins to dance with it. When we stop asking and start feeling, something changes in our vibration, and the world responds, not because the universe serves us, but because we are part of it. We are a note in the same cosmic symphony. That is why the Gospel of Thomas is not just an ancient text. It is a symbolic map, an invitation to rediscover what it means to be human in your entirety. Body, mind, heart, and spirit in perfect harmony. And when that harmony happens, reality transforms, not because something outside moves, but because something within us awakens. And the world, being our mirror, simply reflects that awakening. Faith, at that point, ceases to be belief and becomes consciousness. Prayer ceases to be a request and becomes a state of presence. And the divine ceases to be distant, because we finally recognize it in every detail of life. In the light that passes through a window, in the sound of the wind in the leaves, in the silence between one breath and the next. Humanity is beginning to remember. Each person who awakens to love and unity makes the whole world shine a little brighter, and perhaps that is the true meaning of the phrase that has echoed for millennia. The kingdom is within you, and also all around you. Everything we seek is already here. Everything we wish to become, we already are in essence. The universe does not watch us from afar. It moves with us, with every thought, every emotion, every choice. And now, the question that remains is, what will you do with this remembrance? Will you continue believing that you are merely a spectator of life? Or will you recognize that you have always been the creator of your own experience? The answer is not in any book, temple, or master. It is there, where it has always been, within you. If this message has touched something in your heart, take a deep breath. Feel the silence that exists between sounds, because it is in that silence that the divine speaks. And when we listen, we discover that we were never separate from the whole, only asleep within it.